was the first 8 measures of Edward MacDowell's To a Wild Rose. This is one of the most exquisite and tender pieces I think ever written. Edward MacDowell was the first American composer to achieve national and international fame and respect. He was really adored, and when he wrote this piece in 1896, he was at the pinnacle of his life of happiness, and it reflects in this piece. It's from the Woodland Sketches, and although he wrote many other pieces, it's this piece that he's known most for, with its unmistakable and irresistible signature melody. It's in the key of A major, and being that this is so late in the 19th century, we are getting into many different combinations of chords and subtle combinations that really activate our feelings in a new way. That's what's so special about this piece. Starting simply enough with the A major tonality of the triad, the whole scale of A major, with the 3 sharps and the triad. Starts simply enough in A major, but the second measure right away with this chord, its exquisite cluster, and the next measure, and this measure. I'm playing just the first notes of each measure. That one, C sharp minor sounding and resolving to the A major. So there's a lot of movement already in this first 8 measure phrase. What I'd like to do first is just play the left hand by itself. And let's listen to the movement of the bass line and the intervals above that bass line. Starting with the open 5th. It's the most basic interval. And then this adds complexity. Drop down to the F sharp on the bass. And this one, I hear these in pairs. Now we drop down to E in the bass with a 3rd and a 5th to C sharp in the bass. Repetition of the E and G sharp and the 5th. So what has he done? He's come full circle, starting at this point in measure 1 and in measure 8. He's come the full octave down, and the most beautiful traversing of patterns, stepping down by those pitches that I called out. Now if I take the right hand thumb only, that is what I'm going to now add to what we just heard. And what these are making in the time signature of 2/4 time, 2 beats in a measure, these are all making half notes. So let's listen now and imagine a choir, 4-part harmony, madrigal group singing this, because that's what he had in his mind, I believe. Here we are, everything but the melody. I could do that 5 times in a row and not get tired of it, and I recommend you do that too. That's part of learning this piece well, is to let all of these intervals and combinations of these 3 voices, that's really bass, tenor, and alto playing at the same time, and know them as just as important as the melody that we all know. I'm going to do one other thing here before I play it again as written. I'm going to play just the soprano part, which has the theme 1 melody, and the bass half notes and hear what that sounds like. Now what this melody is giving us is the rhythmic motive. Ya-pa-pa, ya-pa-pa, eighth quarter, eighth quarter. And I like a little diminuendo. Ya-da-da, ya-da-da. I think that's beautiful. So I'm going to try to play it like that. This is just the bass and the soprano. How strange that sounds. Almost modal. That's because of all the fourths in the melody. We start with the melody C sharp to E. That's third and fifth scale degree of our A major. Then he drops down to the second scale degree B and up to E. That's the fourth. And then floating up to the F sharp and falling. That's a fourth. Dropping to the F sharp, another fourth. And up to C sharp, down a fourth. Another repetition. And resolve. And now I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. It's a great privilege and a pleasure for me to show you this. This is a brand new engraving. I just finished this piece. I've been teaching it for years, but I finally made a chart of it on the 11-inch by 17-inch horizontal landscape format. And what this allows me to do is to get the entire first 8-measure phrase on one uninterrupted line, unprecedented. You will not find this in any other edition of printed music because I did it for the first time now. This is my contribution, I think, to making music a little more easy to learn and understand, is putting it in this format. I've re-engraved from public domain music exactly the notes that you'll find in any other edition, but this is looking completely different. So we have System 1, the opening theme. System 2 is a very much of a repetition, still the 8 measures, but it departs right here. And then at these last 2 measures, it's exactly the same. Now your music, you're going to say, but I really love those colors. Well, yours comes this way. When you order your chart, the whole chart package, this is with all this wonderful open space to make your notes, and it's restful on the eye. And it's so lovely. You get your colors in the other 2. Wow, these are the other 2 PDFs that come in your chart package, which you can get as digital downloads from my website, SallyChristianMusic.com. You get your your satellite view in the full piece on one page. This is still the 11 by 17 inch turned this way. And what I like to do is to test my memory, play the whole thing from here. But this, the color satellite, structural analysis, this is my all-time favorite part of doing a chart package. This is where I really get my head around the piece. I identify all the themes and motives and the colors I want to use. I look at the length of the systems. I look at the key areas. So here it is, what I played, our opening 8-measure theme 1 in A major. First time it went to F sharp. The repetition of the material, which we'll do right now, we have a departure at this point, and these line up. So you can study and see exactly how they start the same and how they depart and how they merge back together identically. We'll come back to this when we get to our theme 2. material. For right now, I want to go on with beginning measure 9, our second system. The repetition, this time pianissimo. He's marked it. This is like at a distant hearing of this. We've already heard it once, but we hear it again now, maybe from farther away. Pianissimo. It's very hard to control that. Remember, this is all the same. Now here, instead of going to that one, the first time with the falling F sharp to C sharp, MacDowell, exquisite, the 7th, and it has to lead to the A octave, it has to, and falls. First time we had our theme melody in the left hand. It's for the tenor here. And answers as we know it. Just a marvelous part. Let me play that whole system again now. That was nice. That's the tone I want. Did you notice what I did with my 5th finger here? I'm going to talk a little bit about the technical challenges of playing this, of getting the diminuendo. What I like to do is have my fingers rather high, like if you're holding an orange in your hands and the hands are cupped, and so the fingers are a little longer rather than curved like this, just raising a little bit. Raise your elbows like this. I always like to think in piano playing that I'm a marionette and I have little strings that come up from my elbows, and somebody's moving with their little contraption above my head, and I have these floating arms, almost like a ballet dancer in second position, and that will really help you to lighten up. You're almost on your tiptoes on this, especially with the pianissimo. See, and at the end, I stroke the 5th finger. I slide on the key. Do you see that? I'm going up a little bit with that motion. Then I can get the control. Up to G sharp, and a major 6 in the bass, and an octave in the right hand. That's the defining moment of the first opening 16 measures. It's so tender. Now we go on to the second theme. What would you expect to come next if it was new material? Would you expect this? Well, what chord is that? We're not really even sure. And this, oh, it's a little sad. Let's take a look at just those 4 measures. The first thing we notice is that the melody now has changed. Instead of going ascending, it's coming down, it's falling. And the rhythm is slightly changed to a 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. It lingers a little bit because this harmony comes out of nowhere. We're not expecting this. A 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Now this right here and this. Why is this? Why does that make you sad? And not make you feel, oh, thank goodness. It's because it's a lowered 6th scale degree. On your scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is F sharp. MacDowell is lowering that to an F natural. and then he resolves to the E. And you put it with this seventh. It's almost a diminished sound. That is an augmented second. It's F natural to G sharp, and then resolves to, which is your second inversion of your home key, A major. He's going to be using that lowered sixth scale degree significantly in the repetition of this theme 2 material for the culminating moments in the piece. So I'd like to make you aware that that's going to play a lot in the piece. Let's look at my music now here. This is quite interesting. You know, the whole thrill of me making these engravings is deciding how long to make each system. I get to do whatever I want with the measures. I get to put them in any order I want. And I do this based on really what I see as the rooms of the house. And this is a long, big, huge, great room of 12 measures long. And I divided it into a group of 4 measures, a group of 4 measures, and a group of 4 measures for a good reason. Let's take a look now at the first 4 measures and go on to the second 4. Measure 21, the next group of 4. Look at the chord. And it goes to here. And again. And again. Now what I hear here is consonance, dissonance, C sharp sounding. This is actually the C sharp, and then what you hear here is a B sharp. See, he's playing around. There are a lot of accidentals in this, and that's where the whole magic and wonder and exquisiteness of the piece comes, is how he's altering the scale degrees. The first one we saw was lowering the F sharp to this. At the same time, he took the 4th scale degree in measure 4 and raised it to D sharp. And then he has this beautiful, these sound like parallel sixths. Now what we have in the left hand, very interestingly, in measure 21, is an inversion of our opening melodic motive. Instead of, he's inverting it, going the other way. Isn't that interesting? He liked it. He did it again. So what we have, talking to each other, and the supporting half notes. Dance with these different elements. You could do this all day. I could. Now the next 4 measures. You see that? Surprise harmony? And this is what I call the celestial chorale, because that's how I feel. We have no more identifiable melody of our theme. Everybody joins here as a choir. And listen to the combinations of these chords in this last 4 measure phrase, starting measure 25. These are gorgeous chords. It's in a diminuendo, softer and softer. And at the top, the F sharp at the top, back and forth. And that's got to be one of the most beautiful sounds. Up high on the keyboard, It's both treble clefs here. Now what I'd like to show you is in the outer voices between the soprano and the bass, we have parallel tenths, measured 25. That's in our, it's still in the rhythm, isn't it, of our opening melody. How would you transform that? It's amazing. Look at this. We have 8th, 8th quarter, 8th, 8th quarter, 8th, 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 half note. 8th, 8th quarter, 8th, 8th quarter, 8th, 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 half note. Do you see that this material was taken exactly from here? Spectacular. One of the things I like to show you here is if we take all of these starting pitches, do you know what he's doing? He's stacking thirds like this. That's so beautiful. He did the same thing in measure 4. This is what he's playing around with. That is called superimposition, when you take different triads and put them together. It's not about the separate names of these individual triads. For instance, if we go back for just a moment to our measure 4, the soprano, if you analyze this, I get asked all the time, people will send me questions to my email, SallyChristianMusic.com, and what kind of chord is this? And they'll send me examples of having a whole piece analyzed by each chord. Well, this would really be a first inversion of F sharp minor. And this would be a second inversion of B major. Is that really what he had in mind? Well, I don't think so. I think he was after the idea of a new chord, a new sound, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's what's going on in this piece, and that's why it's so irresistible. That's how I hear this. Let me play this now, the whole 12 measure phrase, uninterrupted, so you can see how he gets from here to here. Let's do that again. Big jump, isn't it? Here we go. Measure 17. Before you start, always take a breath. Breathe. I actually exhale on the opening pitch. I breathe. And I give myself to the pitch with my breath and the motion. Recapitulation. Purposely played that slowly. You know, when I heard that just now in my playing, I was particularly aware of the alto part. I'd like to play that one more time, bringing out the alto more. These are the thumbs of the right hand. I'm going to exaggerate the right hand thumbs. Do you hear how beautiful that is? That's inner melodic line. And why I'm stressing this now, MacDowell loved the art form of the song. In fact, before he wrote this piece, he spent the previous 15 years writing a lot of literature for the song cycle. He was deeply steeped in the European Romantics. He was trained in Europe with some of the greatest teachers at the time. He even played for Liszt and played one of his compositions for Liszt. And you know what Liszt told him? He said, don't worry about being a concert pianist, focus on your composing. And MacDowell was a concert pianist. He was a fantastic pianist. And he studied German literature, did a lot of his own songs with the texts of Goethe, and his own poetry he would put to music. So he was steeped in the idea of voice and soprano, alto, tenor, bass, 4-part harmony. And so paying special attention to that when you learn this piece, I think one of the biggest areas of misunderstanding, particularly that this is, I would call an early intermediate piece. It's easy to play the notes, and so many people ignore everything but the melody. They think that's all there is to the piece. And they're missing half of the beauty. So pay attention to each of these other parts, because that's all what goes into making it. And that way too, you get some options when you go to perform this one day or in your practicing. Like I just did the example right now. This was in real time. I don't have these lessons completely scripted out. I make them up as I go, and whatever activates my listening and strikes me as particularly beautiful, that's what I talk about. And in this moment, it was the alto that I heard. I thought, oh, wow, isn't that gorgeous? Are you ready for the return of the second theme? We know we ended. Guess what? That chord. And now instead of, there are two differences, and I'm going to show you with the structural analysis, two significant differences, and they are marked in your structural analysis. The first time of our theme 2 in the green box, we had the left hand as a third, and the melody fell the fourth. The 2/4. The second time, in the last green box, the left hand has this marvelous ninth, and the right hand, instead of the falling fourths, has a chromatic D sharp, D natural. Isn't that beautiful? So that's marked for you. When you go to memorize the piece, those are the things that are going to make your memory process not only faster, but more secure, so that you don't confuse those two beginnings when you're performing. You know the last time here in measure 37, and when you open up like that, I know the ninth is coming, and I prepare myself to stretch my hand. I can barely reach it, but I can if I come on the edge. I don't have really big hands, but I can get this ninth. And you know what it really is? It's a stacked fifth. If he did this, he's going up the circle of fifths. You know who else did that? The Mephisto Waltz, which was written before this piece was. But that they were doing that now, building the circle of fifths, up a fifth, and that's what he did here. almost sounds like a folk tune, doesn't it? But together, and then over it with this, and fall. Do you see how tender that is? You're catapulted up with this ninth and chromatic falling. Inside, you just break your heart. This is all cantabile. Sing this. What words would you put to it? I wonder what he would have put with it. Okay, here's this wonderful F natural. So sad. Now we have an exact repetition. This is very interesting. Our soprano melody in these four measures and these four measures is identical. The only difference is here at the downbeat of measure 41, the soprano E is tied. But otherwise, the melody, starting measure 37, for this four measure phrase, then the repetition, and then it repeats again. That sounds like really not a whole lot to be excited about. But when you see what goes under, you'll have a whole different idea about that. Now let's take a look at the other parts. I love to do this blocking the non-melody part, which is pretty much 3/4 of the notes. Let's try this in measure 37. That in itself. Hear it as a pair. It decays. Now what about this pair? Beautiful. Now this next part, measure 41, has a tenor solo that leaps up like this. C sharp, C natural, B, A, G sharp, and it has to. This is a very interesting combination of diatonic writing, scale degree notes, and chromatic. He's combining both of them. There's that augmented second again. Sounds almost Middle Eastern, doesn't it? From the augmented second. And everybody together here. This is a little tricky because in the left hand we are holding the second finger on the E from the previous measure 40, and then we have to hang on to it. Hang on, and go back down. Grab that E, A with the pinky. Reach your 10th. Now look, I'm holding 3 notes here. Now I just release. Just hang on to the 5. That has to sustain. That's hard to do. And then you put that over the soprano. And now everybody together, all the pitches. Interesting here. Both of these E's in measure 40 are going to tie into measure 41. He had a reason for doing that. Let's try that starting measure 41 at the downbeat. Now here's this alto with the F natural. It's the F natural and the E. Here are the chords. Are you ready? There it is. The raised D, D sharp. And then a simple coda of a basic, as simple as possible, 5/1 cadence to N with a little twist of the F sharp. And why I hear that F sharp as so powerful is because we've had all of the F naturals. We've had so many of them, starting in measure 39, measure 40. And then to get that F sharp. Even that, polytonality. See, that's really F sharp minor. That's jazzy. Let me play the last two systems again. Let's take one last look at this structural analysis because I wanted to point out that your length of the measures here are on the right-hand column. These dashed phrase marks I put in, this is editorial, that's how I hear it, 4-measure phrase, 4-measure phrase, 4-measure phrase. I put this, what I call the celestial chorale, in the yellow box because to me it was such a defining moment of exquisiteness, reaching almost up to heaven, that's how I hear that, and suspended. And then he does it one last time. I put this yellow box here with that raised D sharp, and then when that drops back down to the D natural here, it's a huge drop too, emotionally. So 8 measures, 12. This is identical to here, 8 measures. Now I really do think that these right down in here, since it's a continuation of the idea of here and then continuing, but because it goes up to here with those important last 3 chords, I didn't want to separate. This is one of the decisions of making an engraving. I did not want to separate this melodic line. I didn't want to split it. I could have tagged this part over here, and then I would have had repetition of material, but it really leads to here in my mind. Minor 6th. So tender. And now we drop down. And you notice I'm thinning out, and I'm only left with 4 notes. That F sharp, I like to clear up the pedal. Let's do that again. This pedaling is really a whole nother subject. There, that was perfect. And release. And he wants it like that. He doesn't want any more notes. I heard somebody once add an extra A at the bottom, and I thought, oh my gosh, they just completely went against, I think, the whole intent of the piece is to end so pared down and simple and contained. Like holding a little baby, or my granddaughter now is getting the wonderful joy of raising some little baby chicks, and they're going to be having fresh eggs next spring when these little chickens grow up and start laying eggs. And she's holding this little cheeky right next to her cheek, and the tenderness is just exuding in this picture, and her little hands cupped on the bird. It's just the sweetest thing. So think of things like that in your life. Maybe some childhood memories like that, like my little granddaughter's having right now. Or when you look at your spouse and they've just done the sweetest thing for you or said the sweetest thing, you feel that way. Or a very, very close friend who needs your help and counsel, and you tell them just what they need and they practically cry with relief. These are the moments and the feelings, the good things in the human condition. And I'd like to close with one other wonderful thing which has really inspired me for the last 30 years when I first came upon this quote from Clara Schumann. And she says this: "Art is a beautiful gift. What indeed is more beautiful than to clothe one's feelings in sound? What a comfort in sad hours. What a pleasure and what a wonderful feeling to provide an hour of happiness to others." And I would add, and what a wonderful feeling to add an hour of happiness for yourself. If you could do that, especially when you're feeling a little bit down or sad about something, which invariably happens in life, and you have a piece like this to go to, oh, it makes all the difference in the world. So as I've come to know this piece, it's really one of my very favorite pieces now. It's way up there, of how it's touched my heart. When you learn it, and learn it to this degree of savoring these interesting chordal combinations, interval combinations, and the constant unfolding of the shadow harmony and then the sunlight harmony. It's very subtle like that. Yeah, I almost feel like I'm just a tightrope walker balancing this constant shifting of these harmonies with the overall containment of one idea of this wild rose, which MacDowell loved. And the last thing I'll say, I read, and I think it's a lovely idea. He was wild about these roses that grew outside his summer retreat in New Hampshire. And supposedly he's buried under a big boulder, and all around the boulder are wild roses. I hope this has been helpful for you. I've very much loved sharing this piece with you, and I hope you learn it and have your own wonderful hours clothing your feelings in sound. Thank you.